Welcome one and all, it's time for yet another red hot, spicy, tingling Warhammer The Old World Tournament Report. Full scale Christmas special from the TSN Arena, and this is the first event with the Dwarves under the new conditions, which are each army has been put into a tier. So the Dwarven Mountain Holds regular army is in tier C, which means that at a 2,000 point event they get 2,400 points to play with. Some of the really bottom of the barrel armies get 2,600, and some of them that are doing quite well, not quite as badly as Dwarves, get 2,200, and then the A tier armies are stuck with their 2,000. So obviously Cathay, anyone who's doing particularly well, Bretonnians, are going to be in that bracket. So let's see what the Dwarves can squeeze in to 2,400 points. Obviously there's butt cheeks squeezed in there, as you can see on the thumbnail, so there's going to be some Doomseekers. Let's dive in and have a look. We've got Wraith in the chat. Good evening. So, and I just noticed that YouTube have updated the page here, so it doesn't have all the stream information in the same place. So you have to click around if you want to look how many viewers you've got and how many likes you've had and such. Interesting choice, YouTube. Okay, so what do we have here? We have got, first of all, several characters in the army. So I'll talk you through everything that's in there, and then I'll tell you the general plan after that. We have got the general over here, King on Shield Bearers, with the Master Rune of Adamant and the Rune of Warding. So that is a toughness 10 King with 6 wounds, with a once per game 2+ ward save. The reason for that is that an obvious counter would be Killing Blow to a character like this, who is toughness 10 and is infantry. So just in case he gets hit with a killing blow or a cannonball or something, then I can use that once per game 2+ ward save to hopefully fight off death for a round. Then, back at this end, we've got the BSB, who is a Thane, who has the usual BSB stuff. So we've got a banner first of all with the Master Rune of Grungni and the Rune of Battle, so the 5+ ward save for the unit and +1 combat resolution. Then he's also got the Exploding Handgun of Doom, which is a handgun with the Master Rune of Bursting Flame, Rune of Rapid Fire, and the Rune of Accuracy. So 2 shots that always hit on 3s, each hit turns into 2d3 hits. So very nice handgun, and the usual BSB setup. Then we've got Burlock Daminson, who is going to sit in a unit and prevent them taking penalties for shooting at long range. That's his main purpose in the army. Then we've got a Runesmith over here, with full plate armor, shield, and 1 rune of spell breaking, so 1 auto dispel per game, but obviously you have to get to within 18 inches to use it, so maybe you won't use it that much. Also on the hill, while we're here, we've got a single organ gun. So this is one of the things I've brought in with the extra points, because I feel like the core of the army, each new unit you add, you have to be able to back up as many of those units as possible with characters. Otherwise, they're easy pickings for certain enemies out there. So I don't think you want to necessarily spam lots of units that can't have characters in them. Some of them will stand up to certain enemies, but it depends on what you're up against. So for the most part, I've just sprinkled in some extra stuff, like this organ gun, which does have a good purpose. I don't think taking lots of them is good, really, because they're not that reliable at dealing damage. They're generally going to be hitting things on 5s, but why I like 1 is to deter ambushers, for example, because it can fire in any direction, which when combined with the Thane BSB, who could pop out of a unit or spin round in his unit and then fire at something quite easily as well, those two hopefully defend against things that either want to land or ambush behind. And it's also just good for taking out things like knights, the organ gun as well. We've got the flying squad here, 3 gyrocopters, so 1 unit of 2 and a unit of 1. The unit of 2 is going to be the cabbage hunting unit, and they've all got clatter guns, which are the march and shoot weapons. We have got Steve in the chat, who's not a fan of old stunties, And my battle reports are awesome. And there is a donation attached to that, so obviously I have to respond to that comment. Let's see, can I put a little thumb on there? Let's heart that comment. There we go. So thank you, Steve. We have got next the Doomseekers. So a trio of Doomseekers. We've got two of the... I almost called them new ones. And they are new to me, because these weren't out when I built the bulk of my dwarf army back in the day. And then there is the plastic Slayer from Battle for Skull Pass as well, obviously with enlarged green stuff butt cheeks, because they weren't quite plump enough. And the way they are kitted out for this game, the naked one is just naked, because that's easy to remember, so it doesn't have any upgrades at all. This one here with kind of the wide stance with the two chain axes just hanging out there, that one generates additional attacks. It's got Rune of Fury for +1 attack, and then Rune of Endless Battle to create more attacks for each unsaved wound it deals. And then this one on the right here has Master Rune of Alaric the Mad and the Warrior's Rune, so that is no armor saves allowed against his attacks, and +1 weapon skill. So these two are very scary. If you've got armor, you don't want to fight this guy. If you've got anything, you don't want to fight this guy. They will do damage if you let them. And they're not that much of a sacrifice, because I've got the extra point allowance. And if they die, they give away nothing. So the enemy may well think, particularly these two, that they're so dangerous that if there's any chance at all of them reaching you, you might as well just try and shoot them, or magic missile them at the earliest opportunity rather than risking it, because they will wreck a lot of things. If you can escape from them, obviously that's preferable, because you can just leave them running around and you'll get the points at the end of the game. We have got a unit of 20 Dwarf Warriors in core. This is definitely my era of Dwarves here. This is where most of my army came from, which was round about year 2000 when they came out with these plastic boxes. And obviously these ones have had some touch-ups, which you may have followed on the channel, to make them look a bit better. Some of the beards were looking a bit green back in the day. The beard painting has definitely come along a long way in my technique. And they have full command. We've got 18 Iron Drakes, as they pronounce their own name in Total War. They have full command. There's no torpedo, because it's not very good anymore. They do have Cinderblast bombs on the champion, and they've got the Master Rune of Hesitation on the banner, which means if you charge into the front of them, you don't get to use lances or impact hits, or any kind of bonus you would have for charging. You do still get your initiative bonus, but any special rules or weapons that you have on the charge, you don't get to use those. So that's nice. Stops them being killed by impact hits. And people will be very hesitant, if you will, to charge them, and rightly so. We have got, also, if we go all the way back, 27 Rangers, and it's my usual Ranger setup. So they have a full command, they have crossbows, throwing axes, great weapons, shields, and they have the Rune of Courage on the banner to prevent them from taking fear and terror checks, which is often important because they will be on their own at times if I decide to scout them, or sometimes I'll start them just outside the deployment zone and then move characters into the unit in turn 1, so I don't want them being afflicted by anything before a character gets in there, maybe help their leadership, for example. And they're going to get charged a lot by scary things, I imagine, because they're usually going to be either unsupported or on the front line when they've scouted just ahead of the rest of the army sometimes. So we don't want them having to take those tests at all. And also I can reveal, at this event, the first time I've ever seen a fear test in the old world. Terror, everyone remembers that. You've got a terror-causing unit, charge in, tell someone they need to take a terror test. Fear, everyone forgets. Never once seen anyone either remind me to take a fear test or do a fear test that I've reminded them to do because I just haven't. Because I've always forgotten that my fear-causing units are supposed to cause tests as well. But at this event, someone did actually remind me to take a fear test. So it's only however long this game's been out. Closing in on 2 years, aren't we, of the old world. And I've finally seen my first fear test. And I think I can remember which game it was in, so I'll let you know when that comes up. And I think I have gone through all the units there. So the plan is, we've got enough deterrent characters, so depending on the situation, I can either pile them all into one unit, if that's the unit that's going to be doing all the fighting, with a toughness 10 king, so no like monster character is going to want to go in there. You don't generally have like a Chaos Lord on Dragon that's going to want to fight anyone who's toughness 10. That's not really a thing that you're going to see. And there's also going to be a BSB with a ward save banner as well, so that's going to make some of these units very not tempting at all to charge. Iron Drakes with their stand and shoot, the Rangers with the stand and shoot, the Dwarf Warriors can be made quite scary with one or two of those characters in there as well. The Runesmith and Burlock are mostly going to go in the Rangers, although Burlock may dabble into the Iron Drakes occasionally for the no -1 for long range bonus, depending on where I position the Rangers and whether they think they're going to need it. And the Runesmith will give extra Armor Bane to the crossbows, so there'll be AP 0, Armor Bane 4 flaming attacks, which is quite scary coming out of the Rangers. Particularly against things like dragons, where they're going to be wounding on a 6 anyway. So you're fishing for those 6s that are going to have AP 4 suddenly, which is quite scary. Gyrocopters, we're going to go cabbage hunting with these two where possible, and try not to get killed. The Doomseekers, I'm either going to be super aggressive with them if I think the enemy's hiding, because I don't want to be stuck with them alive at the end of the game, or if I think the enemy's definitely coming towards me, I'm going to try and set up defensive positions with them so they can counter-attack enemy units that charge into my units. I don't have a huge amount of speed outside of the Gyrocopters, obviously, because it's dwarves, and I don't have a huge amount of super long range. The organ gun, I imagine if I face any cannons, it's going to die in turn 1, so that's going to be interesting, but everything else is fairly cannon resistant. Maybe not the Gyrocopters, but we've got a toughness 10 king, we've got a ward save BSB, all the others are infantry that are mostly going to be quite wide, so not too many of them hopefully will be shot by cannons, unless we found ourselves in a situation where a cannon is in the flank of one of these units. So, let's go into game 1, which is Close Quarter, and this is the map we end up with, so we've got buildings in the middle, and the deployment, you're not allowed to go within 6 inches of the edges. And I'm going to just crack open my opponent's list for this game on BCP. BCP has actually been improved, which I find wild because BCP I've always thought was pretty bad. But the old world square-based TSN events, the scoring is kind of done for you on there now, so you just put in like how many of each thing you did, and then it tells you how many points you get, so you don't need to do much maths, which is nice, especially with the point difference between the armies as well. For example, dwarves getting the 2,400 points, but you can still only score 2,000 kill points, so it accounts for that and works out the percentage of how many points you've actually got, so it's usually a weird fraction at the end of the game. So, here is my opponent's army in game 1. What have we got? We have, let's see if we can find the characters. So we've got a Duke, who is the General, and I think that's going to be this one here. Now, there's no wings on these Pegasus Knights, but that's just because they won't rank up together. They are Pegasus Knights. We have got a Duke who is on a barded Pegasus, so not a royal Pegasus. Has Gromril Great Helm, which is like the Gromril armor but a helmet. Syrian's Locket, Paymaster's Coin, Virtue of Heroism. So very scary, nice, fighty murder Duke. We've got a Prophetess, who is a level 3 wizard on a royal Pegasus, with the Lore Familiar, Sword of the Stout-Hearted, Power Scroll, and the Law of Illusion. There is a Baron who is the... I don't think it's a BSB, I think it's just a regular Baron. I don't think there's a BSB in this list. So a Barded Pegasus, Ogre Blade, that's quite a scary weapon obviously, and Virtue of Knightly Temper. So a couple of quite scary fighty characters there. We've got 6 Knights of the Realm, 2 units of those, so one of them is in the middle, one of them out on the left here. They're hiding behind peasants because obviously they don't want to get shot in turn 1. There are 2 units of 16 peasant bowmen, which are screening the knights at the moment. They are skirmishers. They don't wear any armour. There is a unit of 5 Pegasus Knights here. They have, let's see, they've got a champion. They've got Totem of Wrath, which I believe, is that the new one? Is that one of the new items? They've got full command with lances, the usual stuff, and then there's 3 more Pegasus Knights which are here. One of them snapped off its base, unfortunately. And that is the lot, so let's go to the wide shot there. You can see the Bretonnians are mostly in this corner. And this is obviously an area they don't want to enter. I deployed the Iron Drakes over here way before I knew where all the enemy stuff was going. I knew I wanted the Rangers in the middle, because there's an objective here, and there are core units. They can keep scoring that. The Iron Drakes were supposed to be locking down this flank, and if it just so happens no one's over there, they'll just walk forwards and not die, and just help cover this area if anyone wants to attack me. The deterrents on this flank are the King running around on its own, with toughness 10, because he's not scared of anybody, and the Organ Gun and the Gyrocopters are going to cause some mischief over there. Do we have the baggage trains on this one? I don't think we have baggage trains on this mission. So, what am I expecting here? I don't think those Knights of the Realm are going to attack me at all, is my first thought, even when I saw the army lists, because 6 armoured Knights do not want to be shot by Iron Drakes or crossbows or an Organ Gun. It's like the worst possible matchup for just a small unit of Knights, so they're just not going to involve themselves at all. They might as well just hide. Pegasus Knights packed with fighty characters is obviously a very scary unit. They're much more survivable, twice the wounds per model. And Steve says, wingless Pegasus Knights, interesting. It is interesting that they actually rank up together. You'll see in one of the other armies that I take photos of, someone has set up their Pegasi so that they do have wings and they do rank up because they're each perched on a different level of some ruins, which is a creative way of doing it, which I like. We've got Martin in the chat. Good evening. Totem of Wrath is indeed one of the new ones. Is that the one that gives you extra AP on the charge? It's pretty scary anyway. And the Peasant Archers are going to be annoying, but they're not really going to do much to me with their Strength 3 shooting. So I'm not too concerned they're actually going to do anything. It's just they're being an annoying screen. And to deal with the Pegasus Knights, you can see I've got the King over this side who could potentially, if they decide to come in here and he wants to fight them, if they decide to fight him, which they might not. And the Warriors are backed up with the BSB because I feel they're more vulnerable than the Rangers. If anyone wants to charge the Rangers, they're eating a nice stand and shoot, and we've got the Iron Drakes there as well as backup. So let's see. I'm going first. Gyrocopters moving up. Doomseekers moving up. And a bit of shooting takes out 1 peasant. Obviously they're skirmishers, so it's not that easy. And you can see the scoring that I'm keeping track of here on either side. So for the first game or two, I'm using, for each 10 victory points that we score on the objectives, I'm putting 1 dice pip. So we get 30 each. But after realising that there's way too many points available in some of the missions, I then switch it round later. So if you score 1 objective, you just get 1 pip. So we can make the dice last longer. Into the enemy turn. Knights skirting around the back of the battlefield. Peasants making sure they're on the objective so they can score. Everyone else is just shuffling behind the woods because they don't want to get shot yet. And I need to try and entice them, coax them out of their hiding place, if you will, over the next couple of turns. So we'll see if I can do that, because they really do not want to get shot. So we keep scoring at the same rate, and into my turn, I just move everything forward. Well, everyone that wants to go forward, so Doomseekers, the King, and shoot down a few more peasants. Crossbows shoot down some more peasants over here. It's not that easy to hit them because they are skirmishers. The Iron Drakes have been marching forward as well, because they might want to get into a position to actually do something in this game. There's some knights there, so maybe I could go after them. And they can't hide forever, because I am approaching from all sides. So they could skirt all the way around there, but then they might have to run into the Iron Drakes eventually. So, continuing to score, as normal, not much going on yet. My opponent puts Miasmic Mirage onto the Gyrocopters, which is going to slow them down a bit. And continuing to consolidate behind there. Just continuing to hide. But, obviously, if they come out and land here, they're going to get shot a lot. Next turn, the Gyrocopters get into a position where they can actually shoot the enemy. And my Thane BSB pops out of this unit of warriors, so he can shoot those peasants there, but doesn't actually do much, unfortunately. So not many kills yet, but the Doomseekers are closing in. And if the enemy want to go out this way, the Doomseekers will get them. If they want to go out that way, hopefully the Iron Drakes will get them. So we'll see where they want to engage, or whether they're happy to just sit back. And if they don't move at all, they would probably end up with, at best, a draw. So, yeah, because I'll probably kill something with shooting by the end of the game. Into this turn, Glittering Robes is cast onto the Pegasus Knights, which is going to make it harder to hit them. And based on that, they decide it's time to go. We're going to just fly into the middle of the table and attack. So they've identified that now is the time. There's enough threats have bypassed them, and they think now is a good chance for them to swoop in there. So there's the unit of 3 over on this side as well, the unit of 5 with the characters in. So I've got one turn to obliterate them with shooting. Look at that Christmas jumper and a human hand retrieving that note there. So what they have set up intentionally here is avoiding my BSB with his handgun. So the handgun isn't going to be able to see any of them next turn, so I'm just going to shoot with everything else. This Slayer could charge something, but if we look at the situation, Doomseeker charges in, dies, and I'm not really in a better position because of that. So I don't think that's worth doing. Better off just shooting them with everything I've got. The Knights want to stay away from the Iron Drakes, which I like because it means I don't have to worry about them charging me in the flank if I turn round to face them. So, I've got one turn now to obliterate the Pegasus Knights with the load of crossbows and the Iron Drakes. And I should be close enough to use the Cinderblast bombs as well, which is nice. The Organ Gun and the BSB won't be able to join in. Now, if I wanted to just force the enemy to stay hiding back there, I could have my BSB over here. I could have my Organ Gun over here. But if I do that and lock down the centre, then surely they just go around this side and try and kill the Dwarf Warriors instead, possibly. Or if they don't think that that's a good enough prize, then they would just stay hidden forever, skirt round the back, take a couple of rounds of shooting from Iron Drakes while they get round the sides, and then avoid, and then run away from the Doomseekers the whole game. So eventually they may end up even winning if they manage to escape and get round the back, because the Doomseekers aren't going to catch them. I would have to rotate, start getting through woods. So if they get everything round here, then that wouldn't be a great time for me, I think. I might get some points from domination in the scenario. Into the next round. So you can see that Gyrocopter charges in and kills some peasants, runs them off the table. I get these two Gyrocopters to shoot at the Pegasus Knights. I've got my... The BSB has to march to get there, which is why he can actually see them now, but he can't shoot right now. Crossbows and Iron Drakes shoot. And it's just a really terrible round of shooting. I think I do like 1 wound to the entire unit with... How many crossbows is that going to be? About 12 crossbows, all the Iron Drakes, possibly Cinderblast bombs, and 2 clatterguns, and did about 1 wound. So very disappointing. We've got Rolando in the chat. Well, we're about to find out how they hold up to Pegasus Knights, because the first round of shooting there was very poor indeed. I was hoping if I could kill like 2 Pegasus Knights, that would make the stand and shoot very scary when they do charge in. Okay, into the next round. They charge in. All of them. and I managed to do 3 wounds on the way in with the stand and shoot. So just this one unit with 1 round of shooting is able to do 3 wounds, but in the previous turn when I had them plus the Iron Drakes plus the clatter guns, I was only able to do about 1 wound, I think, maybe 2. So this unit did much better on the stand and shoot here. So hopefully that's enough to save them for a round, because what I want to happen is the Rangers to survive, and then in my turn, Gyrocopters can charge into the rear, maybe a Doomseeker would be in range potentially as well. If not, then they're just going to start sprinting this way as fast as they can, so they can join in before the fight's over. However, the Rangers lose combat, and they die. So you can see my opponent won by about 1 million, and this was with me using hand weapon and shield as well, I think, trying to make them survive a bit better. But with that banner, they were coming in with a lot of AP3, so I was barely getting a save anyway. So loads of them die, and they run away and die. Wow, wow, wow. So that's not great, them being taken out in 1 round. But at least I've got a chance to now turn everything round and shoot the Pegasus Knights again. We'll see if that helps. The organ gun is also available now. So, here we go. Turn round, shoot everyone in there. Organ gun, double misfire, rolls a 1, explodes. Well, that's not ideal. The BSB gets into position, and I can't remember whether he was able to shoot them this turn or not, but obviously didn't do anything because they're still pretty much all there. Maybe a wound was done with all my shooting this turn. So not very successful shooting so far. That's the first time the organ gun fired at the event, and it blew itself up. So just rolling the double misfire is a 1 in 36 chance, and then rolling a 1 after that. Not very nice. The Dwarf Warriors are staring down at these guys, these Pegasus Knights now, but they don't have a character in there because the BSB got out to do some shooting. And you can see the King and the Doomseekers are now given up on catching this unit. We might as well just start running that way, maybe, and trying to catch somebody else, like some archers, and spread out for the domination on the scenario as well. Gyrocopters getting into position, shooting some peasants. Not much effect though. You can see one of the gyrocopters has been killed, I think. And yes, so into my turn 6. There's lots of enemy repositioning going on. They're not eager to attack the Iron Drakes at all. Even setting up a rear charge, they don't want to do that because they'll just spin around, shoot them, and then even if they charge in, you then die. So the knights are just pointless. They might as well not be in the game, these 2 units of knights. Because if anything, they're just going to give away points by dying. And with domination as well, they might as well stay alive. So that's maybe one of the unsung downsides of the domination aspect of the game. Because you were already incentivized in the old world to avoid a fight and keep units alive, and now with domination and other scenario scoring, you need those units alive at the end of the game to score you points for territory that you control as well, and objectives that you control. So maybe it hasn't made the game quite as aggressive as it could have done. I'm still in favour of unit kills being totally meaningless in the final scores and it being 100% scenario based. Not because I think that's perfect, but I think you wouldn't see necessarily knights doing this kind of thing quite so much, because thinking that you'll die isn't as big a deal if you're not giving away victory points, because you'd be more inclined to throw them in as a distraction or throw them in combined with something else, knowing one of them will die but you won't mind because you'll get in with the other one then, or using them as a screen, using chaff units more. So yeah, I think that could still be something tweaked in the old world. I think killing stuff is still very effective, and avoiding death is still the order of the day for a lot of units. Turn 6 for me, not much is going to happen. I do put the BSB back in the unit of warriors, so I'll get a stand and shoot against the knights if they decide to charge in. And I've ranked up a bit as well there, so you can see I'm quite confident if I charge in, I'll survive a round against them. And the Iron Drakes try and do a bit of shooting to very little effect. The Gyrocopters move up and shoot a single Knight of the Realm. Don't manage to kill it, and all the Doomseekers are going to be stuck alive at the end of the game because they've got no one to charge. Because the enemy is just too fast and evasive and elusive. That's the problem with Doomseekers. Occasionally you will have a matchup where the enemy have nothing you can pin down. And you can use them to guard your other units, but like I was saying, if they were guarding my Rangers, the enemy probably just don't go after the Rangers, they just leave the Doomseekers there and leave them alone. If you guard your position too well, they just won't attack you. So, it's not a great matchup for the Doomseekers, this one. Turn 6 for the enemy, they don't need to do much. Just make sure they're optimally positioned for domination scoring. And that's the end of the game. So the final score in that one, let's see, it is 14-6 to the Bretonnians because they've got more of the table. Do they have more of the domination? The domination's fairly even, actually. But obviously they've got more kill points because they've killed the Rangers and I've not killed that much stuff. I killed a few peasants and that's mostly it. The organ gun also blowing itself up didn't help. It's only the organ gun, the Rangers, one Gyrocopter, the Runesmith and Burlock that died, I think. But obviously the Doomseekers are giving away points as well because they're alive. So, not a great start, but I think it's quite a tricky matchup. My opponent in this game is one of the better players as well, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, he's one of those players that, in every game, seems as if he's very anxious about how it's going to go, and talks like he's going to lose a lot. And he does all this while, in my opinion, it looks like he's winning, or will win, which I always find quite amusing. People who are very concerned about how the game is going, even though, in my opinion, they're winning. Okay. Next scenario. Upon the Field of Glory. So, this one, you can see that we've got hills in the deployment zone. Yeah, that's what we like to see as dwarves. And we've got baggage trains, we've got special features. Well, we're supposed to have a special feature, but I think we forgot to put one down. And strategic locations, of which we have 4, and I'm up against. Let's see if you can guess what this army is, because I bet none of you will guess what it is from this photo. You might actually, because you can see where certain units are. Let me pull up the list here. Just scrolling down, and there we go. Orlando guesses vampire counts. You would be wrong to say that. It is actually Grand Cathay. So I'll tell you what the units are when we get there in a moment, but a lot of models that have been repurposed. I'm not sure whether they've been built specifically with Cathay in mind or not, or whether they were built for another project and now they've been repurposed. Maybe if my opponent ever sees this video and leaves a comment to let us know. But some of the units probably were specifically for Cathay, which we'll get to in a moment. So, let me go through it. We've got a balloon, which is some kind of Dark Eldar vehicle from 40k with some of the... Are they the new Chaos Dwarves for AOS riding it? We have got another balloon, which is out on the other side here. So they scout, which is why they're so far forward. We've got a Shugengan Lord, which is this one here, and that has Iron Talons, it's a level 2 wizard, the Law of Yang, Great Spirit Longma, the Monkey King's Wisdom and Battle Magic. Then there are 3 Shugengan Generals. One is here, one there, and one there. So 4 fighty flying characters. They're not the most damage dealing ones. They're not super expensive, but they are still quite good. And they all have battle magic. So they're all level 1s, all the others. In core, we have got... Where are we? 19 Jade Warriors, which are... this unit here. They've got a champion with an enchanted shield and an icon of Heavenly Fury. And then 2 units of 5 Jade Lancers, which are the cavalry, obviously. So I guess these are like evil Cathay. Then we've got 2 Grand Cannons, which are these new Chaos Dwarf AOS mortars. And then the 2 Sky Lanterns. And you know what? I've never actually looked at how many points the Sky Lantern is, or hadn't looked for a while. 155 points. I'm sure I did know that, but it still is just as hilarious every time I see it. 155 points for the balloon. Wild. That is barely more than 2 gyrocopters. And I think I know which one of the things I'd rather have. Okay, so let's go back to the wide shot and talk about the plan here. My plan is to act like the balloons do not exist. Because I'm not going to catch them. And what's the point worrying about them? Just let them do whatever they want, focus on trying to kill other things. Just totally ignore the balloons. Don't try and shoot them, don't try and... well, unless I've got nothing else to shoot. Don't chase after them. Don't attack them unless I've got no other options. I'm going to focus mostly on trying to kill the 4 flying characters instead. And see how that goes. Because that would be a decent chunk of points if I could kill them. I can also keep scoring on this objective. If my enemy wants to come forward and score on these 2, that means coming into range of my shooty units with the cavalry. I only have to kill 1 from each unit to stop them being able to score on these, I think. So we'll see if we can set that up. Doomseekers are just going to go straight forward and maybe deter the enemy. We've actually got 1 Doomseeker hiding behind here in case anyone wants to come around the flank. So the one thing you don't want to do with the Doomseeker is put it like there, because then the enemy will charge it and just overrun into the next unit and not have to worry about a stand and shoot. So let's see how it goes. We've got cabbage trains out on this one as well. Where's my opponent's train? There it is. It's with that dragon tomb at the back there. So into turn 1 for my opponent. So I think I already took all the pictures of it though. So my opponent chose to go first. Charged the gyrocopters, they fled obviously. Put a balloon into position over here to start shooting me. And another balloon in a position to start shooting as well. And that was that. So the cannons obviously kill the organ gun because it's turn 1 and they're cannons. They've got ogre loaders as well, you can see there, so they're able to fire multiple times. So no war machine is going to make it out of turn 1 against 4 cannon shots, surely. One thing that is actually a little bit overlooked though, with the way, I'm not sure if it's entirely just a square-based ruling on the way that cannonballs and terrain work, is that now if they touch any parts of terrain, they just stop. So if you've got a cannon on a hill, it's actually quite difficult for them to land the shot directly on you, because it doesn't bounce across the hill, it just hits the front of the hill and stops. So they have to land it directly on top of the thing they're trying to hit. So if I had a bigger hill, I would put more stuff on it, but maybe with that in mind, the organ gun should go up there, really. But what I want to do is move the Iron Drakes forward and then allow them to shoot at a large target in 2 ranks and allow the Rangers to shoot in full ranks from the hill in case they want to shoot anyone that's not a dragon or a Shigengan Lord. So, into my turn, Iron Drakes move towards the edge of the hill, do some shooting, do 2 wounds. I think people tend to count up on damage, so that's 2 wounds done rather than remaining, whereas I always count down, so people at a glance, they can look and see how many more wounds they have to do, without asking you how many wounds it started with. That's the way I prefer to do it. So all that shooting from both these units, all it does is just 2 wounds to the Shigengan Lord. As I said, ignoring the balloons mostly. I did actually charge a Doomseeker into a balloon though, and I think it just got killed. Because I'm quite happy just to get the Doomseekers killed if need be, to stop the points. Gyrocopter fleeing from the enemy over here. And we've got a balloon and one of the Shigengans into the Rangers. And they do win combat and just nudge me back a bit in that direction. I think it was a give ground. So it wasn't too terrible. And you can see the scoring in my opponent's favour is starting to rack up here, because these cavalry units have moved on to the objectives now. So I've got the choice. Do I let them keep scoring, or do I try and shoot one off each unit so they can't score anymore? Turn 2 for me. I decided to turn around and try and deal with the big scary stuff. So this is the Shigengan Lord, I think, this one. So Iron Drakes and the BSB Thane shooting at him, but they don't do much at all. The Runesmith in a challenge, and I actually win combat this time and push the enemy away. And, or is that the one that, I think that one actually fell back in good order. Or is it that one? I think that one fell back in good order here, which is why it's now behind this one. But I was shooting at this one with the Iron Drakes. But I won the combat. And, well, the balloon's unbreakable, obviously, because for 155 points, surely unbreakable seems very reasonable. And there we go, end of that turn. The points are starting to build up over on this side and not so much on my side, though. And when we get into the enemy turn, you can see that my Dwarf Warriors have turned around, so they're not going to get flanked by anybody. If anyone wants to charge in there and fight my Toughness 10 King, then they're welcome to try. We'll see if they do. This guy that fell back in good order charges back in fresh into the Rangers and makes it in. Balloon just lands in amongst my units there, doesn't want to fight anyone right now. Neither does this Shigengan General. And the Lord just sneaks around the back as well. 2 cannons, open fire. And they take out... Hold on, who was there? Was it gyrocopters? Let's have a look. Yeah, I think it was this gyrocopter gets killed by cannons. And you may notice that all the Rangers are now dead. That's not because I lost hideously. I lost by like 3. Fell back in good order. But because I'd been... or because the combat had been nudged around a bit in the previous turns, the direction of flight meant that they rotated and touched the edge of the table and die. It was only like one guy's toe grazed the edge before they fell back. So they die. The entire unit. Wow, wow, wow. If I'd actually lost way more models, it would have been safer, because then the unit would have got narrower. So they're all dead. That's the one thing that I would change immediately if I was in charge of the old world rules, is direction of flight. I think the way it works is just bad. I think you should just go either directly backwards or directly sideways, based on which flank you're engaged with, or which flank the highest unit strength enemy is engaged in. And if there's something directly behind you, then you just can't fall back that way. Obviously you can flee and like do fleeing through them, but you just go in a straight line rather than trying to work out centre to centre and all that just pivoting away from each other nonsense. I would completely get rid of that. And a nice upside down photo there. Turn 3 for me. Let's see if we can turn it around with some shooting. Shooting the balloon. And doing some damage, which is nice. And yeah, I'm just trying to pick the targets that I think I can actually do damage to now. So if something's already hurt, then I'm going to try and finish it off and get the points. Not worried about being charged in the rear into the Iron Drakes, because they are stubborn and they've got the ward save in there, so they're not too bothered about that. But obviously I'm not doing enough damage to any of the big stuff, really. Turn 4 for the enemy. Lots of charges into the Iron Drakes. But again, they're not super concerned, because I think they'll die eventually anyway if all this stuff just sandwiches them. And obviously no one's going to charge in the front, because that would be wild. And lose quite a few Iron Drakes, but not a huge amount. And they are stubborn, so they'll be alright for a round. Points are building up on this side quite heavily. In my turn 4, continuing the fight, and not doing enough really to any of these enemy characters. I'm just guarding the cabbage with my dwarf warriors now, rotating to make sure no one can touch that before the end of the game. Otherwise you're going to get charged by Toughness 10 King, who's bringing some combat resolution with him. I wonder if these dwarf warriors would appreciate being referred to as combat resolution. Turn 5 for the enemy. So the Iron Drakes get finished off this time. And that's about it for the turn. Nothing too much exciting going on there. Turn 5 for me. Not much I can do now. Turn 6 for the enemy. They're just spreading out, making sure they've got objectives and such. Turn 6 for me. Nothing at all. The king gets out the unit just to pose for a photo. And that's the end of the game. So, obviously, it's a big win for Cathay. And let's go to the last wide shot. It obviously wasn't a particularly engaging game, because there's only so much you can do against the big flyers and the balloons. They can just charge pretty much where they want, and you have to have set up to punish them for it. And you're really hoping that the stand and shoot and the couple of turns, or sometimes one turn of shooting that you get before they charge you, is effective. And unfortunately, in this game, it wasn't. It's a tale of the first two games, really. The enemy lands in front of you, you've got a chance to shoot them. Can you do enough damage to kill something before they charge you? And in both those games, the answer has been no. Despite, let's see, the Rangers are like 400 and something points. And let me go back to my army list here. So the Iron Drakes, and obviously it decides that now is a good time to refresh the page, which I can assure them it wasn't. So yeah, the Iron Drakes and the Rangers, expensive units, but they haven't done enough to the enemies that are going to be charging me yet, which is unfortunate. So, from the next game onwards, it might be the next game, I'm going to start changing things up a bit. And instead of leaving any units vulnerable, particularly the Rangers, I'm going to consider piling all my characters onto them and making them kind of an unstoppable big blob and see how that goes. It's not been going too great so far. I think that was a 20-0 for the Cathay as well, because I barely scratched them. I don't think I actually killed any units. I did damage, but not enough, and obviously didn't claim that many points. So, it's Bretonnians again in round 3. So let me crack this one open in round 3. So it's time to bounce back. I actually forgot I was going to put in a picture of the Alan Partridge bouncing back book cover at this point in the battle report, but I totally forgot. So that's ruined now. Okay, let me open up this Bretonnian list. Now, my opponent in this game was actually wearing full knight attire, full Bretonnian knight, including helmet. And obviously, over the course of the game, various pieces of armour do come off because it's slightly unwieldy. But for at least a short period, there was a full knight opposite me. Let's have a look at what the enemy have got. It's quite similar to the list I faced in round 1, but not quite identical. In fact, let's see if we can spot the differences from the wide shot here. So, there's no artillery, just like that one. There is a bigger unit of knights, definitely. Similar number of Pegasus knights, but there isn't a second unit of them. There's just more knights on horses, basically, which is good for me because they are not ideal against my army. Lots of strength 4 and 5 shooting with either AP or access to lots of armor bane from a runesmith is not necessarily the best for knights. So I'm feeling much better about this matchup with less Pegasus knights and more knights on conventional mounts. So let me go through the list and then I'll tell you about my setup strategy. We have got, where are the heroes? So we've got 2 characters again. One of them is actually a BSB though. So 2 characters on Royal Pegasi. So we've got a Duke on a Royal Pegasus, Syrian's Locket, Ogre Blade, Virtue of Knightly Temper, and then Sir... they've actually got names as well. That's Duke Gaston. Then there's Sir Hugh, who has... he's the BSB. He's on Royal Pegasus, Gauntlet of the Duel, Seal of Paravon, Potion of Speed, Virtue of Heroism. So a couple of exciting, powerful characters there. Quite expensive. A Prophetess level 3 on a Bretonnian Warhorse, who is in amongst that unit. They've got very stylish banners, this army. Definitely one of the coolest armies at the event, this one. Then we've got 6 Knights of the Realm, 6 Knights of the Realm, and 9 Knights of the Realm with command in each one, and then 2 lots of 15 Peasant Bowmen. But they do actually have standard bearers and musicians, full champions in fact. And there's the baggage train. As you can see, let's go back to the wide shot a second. Rolando says another Bretonnian army. Well, there's a lot of Bretonnians. People just have armies because they were the first ones out of the gate for the game, and they just look cooler than Tomb Kings, so a lot of people had them, and they've been quite strong for most of that time as well. But I think they are A tier under the square-based comp system, so they get less points than Dwarves. So, I think I went through all the units. Oh yeah, the 5 Pegasus Knights. So quite a decent chunk unit size of a unit there. Now, we've got the Rangers on a hill there. They're just outside my deployment zone, so all these characters are going to go in there. I'm going to pile everything into the Rangers, because I'm not sure that Pegasus Knights really want to charge into the front of the Iron Drakes, because they've got the Hesitation banner and they've got a really strong stand and shoot. I don't know if they want to waste their time chasing, for example, gyrocopters, so I don't know if there's anything really juicy for the Pegasus Knights to get their hooves into. Maybe Dwarf Warriors, but they're quite sturdy, they've got good armor save and decent combat res. So I think if I pile everything into the Rangers, that makes it a very strong unit that's staring right down the middle, and I can move it forward onto the special feature at the end if required as well. And until then I can be scoring this objective. Dwarf Warriors can move up onto this one, and they'll hold their own against like 6 Bretonnian Knights maybe. Doomseeker over there as well to go chasing things. The 2 cabbage hunting gyrocopters there, they're going to try and work their way around the Knights. Organ gun to deter anyone from being in this area or from trying to flank me. 2 Doomseekers, these are the powerful Doomseekers there. The no armor saves and extra attacks one, they're going to go straight through the middle and see if they can fight some Knights. So, Bretonnian's generally going to pray, so you're generally going to have the choice of first turn against them, which I'm mostly going to take if I think I've got good shooting options. You can see the wizard there in the centre of the big unit of Knights. So, I'm going first. Move forward, get the Slayers up there, get my characters into the unit as early as possible, and then I'm going to start shooting. Gyrocopters in amongst the enemy outside of the charge arc of the Knights. And I do a wound, and let's see, how many Pegasus Knights are there? 4, so I may have already killed 1 actually. Killed 1 and wounded another with all my shooting, which I'm quite happy with. That's not bad for a first round. The BSB with the handgun is obviously good for those kind of things. Into turn 1 for the enemy, and by the way I'm now using just a pip is representing holding 1 objective, so each pip is worth 30 victory points now, because you saw in the last game the dice started running out. Knights working their way around the flank. Well, has something unfortunate happened? Has the Bretonnian, let's see, Prophetess attempted to cast a spell and miscast, resulting in a calamitous detonation from the centre of a unit of 9 cavalry? Well, that is quite unfortunate, isn't it? So, a miscast blows up 7 Knights of the Realm, and the wizard also wounds herself, but she then uses I think she's got a healing potion. Yeah, so she uses that immediately, so she's not wounded anymore. But not the greatest start for the Bretonnians there. The peasant bowmen shoot at the gyrocopters a bit. You can see the Pegasus Knights are working their way over this side. They don't like the idea of just landing here and being shot by things, I can imagine. And yeah, that's kind of punched a big hole in the middle of their lines now. But I'm not going to pretend to be too upset, because it is Bretonnians. And into my turn. Gyrocopter charges into the peasants, but it's actually quite a tough nut to crack this, because they have a standard bearer. And the gyrocopter doesn't have a lot of attacks, so if it doesn't do really well, it's typically not going to beat them. So the gyrocopter bounces off them. My rangers with the BSB unleash a volley and knock down another Pegasus Knight. So we're doing a bit better with shooting this time. And you can also see that because my 2 gyrocopters are now touching the enemy cabbage, they have to attack me somehow. They can't let me just steal the baggage train. We've got another Martin in the chat. Or is that going to be pronounced... Is that going to be pronounced Martin, or is it going to be more like Martine? Some other kind of variation on Martin? Or is the J irrelevant? But we definitely had another Martin in earlier. Let's have a look. Yeah, there we did. So, well-represented name, or at least similar name, tonight. So, they're going to have to deal with my gyrocopters now. I've got 1 wound remaining on this one. And... oh, lovely upside-down photo there. So, let's see. The Knights of the Realm who are hiding behind the building are now out in the open, ready to charge the organ gun next time, if they want to. The Pegasus Knights charge in to deal with the 2 gyrocopters, which is kind of what I wanted them to do, because it's going to keep them away from me for longer, allowing me to shoot other things. Because as we saw in the previous game against Bretonnians, this unit with 2 powerful characters in, when they come and land in front of you, if you can't deal with them immediately, they're going to charge in, they're going to kill things. It would be much tougher for them in this game against the Rangers, because there's toughness 10 King there, who they're not going to do anything to, probably. And I've got 5+ ward on the entire unit from the BSB. So I may even be tempted with this unit, if they were to charge in, to go with great weapons and rely on the ward save to keep some of them alive, and then hit back with strength 5 on all the great weapons. So they kill the gyrocopters, of course, but it's tied them up for a turn, so it's kind of done its job. The Knights are not eager to move forward and get shot, as you can imagine. I don't know if you've noticed, since I got my new phone, the camera on it, it likes to focus in on one area of the battlefield and make the other areas blurry, which is nice and cinematic, but not necessarily what I'm going for. So I still need to tweak the settings on that. I'm sure there's probably a camera mode I've got it set to that makes it do that. Also, here's a question for anyone that might know. It's an Android. When I take photos, it guesses which way is the correct orientation for the photo. So sometimes they're upside down, sometimes they're sideways. I would like to set it so it's just default all the time. Every photo will come out the same, however I'm holding the phone. That's what I'd like to happen. So does anyone know of a really good camera app that will do that for me? If not, I'm going to have to furiously Google at some point, because I do spend a lot of time rotating photos. Martin says, we played against each other last summer, how could you forget? Oh, dun dun dun. Well, to be fair, I do play a lot of games. So I definitely didn't forget that that game existed. If I'd seen your face instead of just your username there, then I definitely would have remembered. Steve says, exiles could still be tough. Now you can see that my BSB has now popped out of the unit because he wants to shoot some people. The Iron Drakes have moved forward. Doomseeker moving forward as well, try and chase the enemy, and all that shooting does finish off the Knights and the Wizard that was with them. So they are now deceased. The Organ Gun and the Thane BSB, who doesn't do very well, they only kill 1 Knight of the Realm between them. I was hoping to completely knock that unit out. And that's very sad. That now means the Organ Gun's probably going to get charged. Okay, we've got a charge going in. Obviously. We've got other Knights hiding behind the hill. And, okay. Is this one of the more embarrassing things you've seen? The Knights of the Realm charge into the Organ Gun, do 0 wounds, and then the barrel swabbing stick with a rag on the end, to the face, takes out one of the Knights of the Realm. resulting in a drawn combat. Wow, wow, wow. There is, I think, is there actually a musician in the unit? Yeah, I think there is. So I think they win by 1 on that basis, with a standard bearer and a musician. Well, that is embarrassing, isn't it? Anything else notable this turn? Not really. There's mostly hiding going on. You can see the Pegasus Knights working their way around this side now. They've identified that they don't want to go straight down the middle. Probably wise. And into... Yeah, I think I took the photos of the turn number out of sequence a bit there. So by the time we get to my turn 4, we've got this fight still going on. And more shooting takes out a few peasants. Gyrocopter jumping around the back trying to shoot these knights. You can see there's 2 taken off there, which is great. The Iron Drakes are moving forward as well to try and shoot them. They're going to move up onto the hill at some point, and then they'll have better line of sight. The Rangers just do a bit of reforming in case any Pegasus Knights want to come and land in front of me. And into the enemy turn. So the Pegasus Knights land over here, which means if I want to shoot them I will have to turn round. Which means moving, which means -2 to hit for the crossbows, which is very sad. The gyrocopter is still staying alive on 1 wound despite being shot, and I've just noticed that these peasants actually have bowstrings. So that is definitely bonus points there for putting strings on the bows. The gyrocopter is still actually hanging on, and with 1 crew member left now. But keeps passing the test and does not run away and die. Look at that lovely focus shot compared to that horrible blurry one. You can see why I took a second one. I could sense that that photo wasn't very good. My turn 5. Rangers spin round to do some shooting. The the organ gun does die this time. And I managed to shoot some wounds onto the Pegasus Knights, but not very many, I think, despite the BSB being in there. And you can see the Dwarf Warriors have turned round because they want to move into range of the special feature at the end to score the points for it. The Iron Drakes will have to get out of the way then. And into enemy turn 5. So, everybody charges in. The Knights of the Realm and the Pegasus Knights, which allows me to rack up some good stand and shoot on the Knights of the Realm. If it was me personally, I would have considered not charging these guys in, because they died from the stand and shoot. And the stand and shoot isn't going to be that effective against the Pegasus Knights because a lot of them will benefit from cover because this unit's in the way. I'm not sure I would have sent them in as well. You can understand, though, sending them in. Not necessarily a terrible idea, because if they do survive, that gives you more hitting power. But I don't think I would have done it. I don't think I would charge this unit at all, to be honest, because there's the toughness 10 king in there. I've got the BSB. I've got a good static combat res. So I just think I would leave them alone if it was up to me. But in they go. All the Knights of the Realm get killed from shooting. And then the enemy don't do that well in fighting, actually, because I've got the ward save, that's saving most of them, and then I hit back with the great weapons and do a good amount of damage. So I'm winning by, what's that, like 9 points? So I think the enemy might be stubborn, though, because it's down to the characters now. So I think they fall back in good order, and this one falls back maybe further. Or when I follow up, I end up touching this one first, which is the BSB. You can see not many Rangers died at all there. Okay, not much going on that turn. So my turn 6, Gyrocopter keeps chasing these knights behind the building. The BSB loses combat by a decent margin and runs away, which is great. But it's probably going to rally. And then I overrun into the general. The Iron Drakes shoot at these peasants, and one of them is remaining and runs away. Turn 6 there, and then turn 6 for the enemy. The BSB rallies. Peasant runs off the table. The enemy general flees as well, which is good. I win the combat by a sufficient margin. You can see my king, toughness 10 king, has taken 1 wound. So, this is a very powerful unit now. And maybe people weren't scared enough of the rangers when I wasn't loading it up with characters. Maybe they weren't respecting the rangers enough. But when there's a toughness 10 king in there for challenges, and a 5+ ward save on everything, this is just a horrible unit now. And obviously everyone benefits from the extra armor bane and flaming attacks from the runesmith as well. Burlock's in there, so no long range penalties for anyone. As long as I can keep the other units safe without the characters, this seems pretty beefy. Okay, so at the end of that game, let me pull up the final score here. It is a 16-4 win for the Dwarves. Now, just looking at it, it feels like it should be more than that, because I've got the special feature, I've killed a lot more stuff. But some very expensive things are still alive. The general is fleeing, but isn't dead. The BSB is alive, and there's a unit of knights that's still alive, hiding around there somewhere. I've got all my expensive stuff alive. The Doomseekers are all dead, I think. So that's a good point swing there. It's difficult to get a huge win, though, in the square-based scoring system. To really wipe someone out and score lots of scenario points to get a 20-0. Okay, the next one. King of the Hill. Now, this sounds like my cup of tea for the Dwarves, because you aren't allowed to vanguard, but you are allowed to scout. So that means that the rangers can actually start off touching the hill, which is going to be quite significant because there's 27 of them, and the enemy, unless they've got an even bigger unit than that can move up and touch the hill, that means they're not going to be able to control the hill very easily. So, here is my setup against demons. We've got rangers, as I said, touching the hill, but in such a way that I can move my characters in there in turn 1. I'm going for the same setup again, where I'm putting the runesmith and the 2 shield bearer characters into the rangers, but I've got Burlock in the Iron Drakes this time. My thinking is, whenever the rangers are going to be shooting anyone in this game, it's going to be quite close to them. So I probably don't need the no long range penalties, whereas the Iron Drakes probably will, because they might be shooting anything that's coming down here, or I might have to move towards the enemy to shoot them. So he's going in with them this time. We've got the organ gun up there because they're going to move down off the hill. We've got the dwarf warriors on this side. Let's have a look at the enemy army as well. I will find that list here in round 4. And we go, crack that open. So, very stylish baggage train with some hands coming out of a portal. Very nice indeed. This is a very cool army. One thing I don't like, horrors don't split into smaller horrors now, which I can understand is a logistical nightmare, so I can understand why they would get rid of that. But I do think it was very cool back in the day how the horrors would split into smaller ones. But that's no longer a thing. So, the Lord of Change, I don't think that photo actually does it justice. I think I took some more photos at lunchtime though, but you can see eyeballs. And I don't know everything that's been used to make this, but very cool indeed. So that's the Lord of Change, who is level 4, with Ether Blade, Twin Heads, the Illusion, Law of Magic. We've got some pink horrors. These little portals here are unit fillers, so it's actually a unit of, let's see, how many pink horrors? 19. And then 2 units of 10 blue horrors, with Flames of Tzeentch on all of them. They all have a champion, and the pink ones have a standard bearer and musician as well. We've also got 3 demonic heralds of Tzeentch, which are... where are they hiding? I think those are just all the wizards. So we've got one here on foot. We've got, let's see, one here, which I think flies with this very nice Eclipse banner, which is going in with this unit of let's see, what are they called again? Is it Chaos Furies? There you go. So they've got one of the heralds in with them. And when there's 3 heralds, you can't really name one of them Harold the Herald, which is what I usually do. And the other one is somewhere, but I don't know where that one is. But there are 3 demonic heralds of Tzeentch. One of them flying. Oh, one of them's on a steed. Okay, so one of them will be with this unit, but I don't know which one it is. There is, let's see, there's also 4 Beasts of Nurgle, which is this unit here. Very stylish models. 5 Seekers of Slaanesh. There we go. So one of them is the Herald. Then there are 2 Skull Cannons of Khorne. So they're basically like dwarf cannons, but they can move, and when they misfire, they just take a wound instead of maybe blowing up. So they're actually quite good. They're like chariots. But the models being used are... It's like the standard Chaos Monster pose, isn't it? Where you've got one arm out to the side. And I think that's a suitable stand-in for a Skull Cannon. By the way, I've not mentioned the secret missions yet at this event. That's because mine are all very difficult and I don't think I ever achieved any of them. So I just didn't mention them. If anyone scores one, I will mention it probably though, if I remember. So let's go back to the wide shot again and talk about the plan. So this is the hill. I have a high unit strength unit here. It's going to have 3 characters in there, so it's going to be unit strength 30 by that time. The enemy have a unit of 19 plus a character. So I have a high unit strength and I'm already touching the hill. So I'm going to be scoring this throughout the game until they kill some rangers. And I'm then primed in position to get the special feature at the end of the game as well, which is then going to be worth another 200. So I'm very confident about that. I don't know if the enemy has the punch without throwing everything in. And if you do that, you risk going into this horrible unit that has a ward save and a toughness 10 king in it. And I don't know how wise that would be for the demons, just getting into a big upfront fight with the unit of rangers with all the characters in. But if you don't do that, you're just going to let me score over the course of the game. And it's been modified. I don't know if it's just a square-based change, but King of the Hill, you only score 100 points at the end of your own turn, not the enemy turn. So potentially 600 points over the course of the game for this hill, and then 200 for that special feature, which is a large amount of points. The Doomseekers are probably going to get killed in this one because the enemy can't just sit back because there's a hill that I'm scoring points on. So they have to come forward, which means the Doomseekers will probably end up dying, which is good. The Iron Drakes are locking down this flank a bit. And if there's nothing for them to fight, they're going to have to start working their way inwards a bit because the enemy might be hesitant to go forwards there, which is okay with me. The block of Dwarf Warriors are going to hang back, not be too eager to get into a fight. And the cannons, my king out on his own is not concerned about being hit by a strength 8 cannon because he's toughness 10. My BSB has a ward save but is maybe slightly more concerned about being hit by a cannonball, so he'd like to get in that unit as fast as possible. And the gyrocopters are going to go and see if they can find some cabbages. So let's go. Turn 1 for the enemy. And the Beasts of Nurgle are magically conveyed up the battlefield in front of my 2 Doomseekers. So I'm going to try and set something cool up in a minute here, which we'll talk about when I do it. The enemies on this side are not too eager to be shot, so they're not rushing forwards. The Furies are lurking behind there. The enemy are not too eager to throw themselves forward to get shot here, as you can imagine. Because this whole area, I've got my 2 very powerful shooting units trained on it. So why would you just rush in there and die? But you kind of have to do something though, because the Rangers are just going to keep scoring until you hope to sweep through this flank and work your way through. But I've got a plan. So, turn 1 for me. The Iron Drakes move forward. Doomseeker, this one actually becomes slow as a result of the misbehaving mercenary table. The gyrocopters and the king are not going to get into this unit. The king is actually going to go this way and help slow down the enemy over there. The gyrocopters going this way as well. But I do put the runesmith and the BSB into this unit. So, here's my idea for a setup. I don't want this Doomseeker to be deprived of impact hits next turn. So, what I would like the enemy to do is charge into this one, kill him, and then over and into the Dwarf Warriors. I then flank with the Toughness 10 King, I flank with the Doomseeker, who gets loads of extra attacks, and flank with the Gyrocopter, who gets impact hits. And hopefully, with all that, that would be enough for me to defeat the Beasts of Nurgle. If they choose a more conservative approach, like not charging the Doomseeker, then obviously he would just charge in as well. If they try and reposition, there's not a lot they can do actually, because they can't really rotate, because this guy's stunning here. They could maybe go this way and deny him his impact hits, and also make it harder for the king to charge, but then you're just letting me set up the same thing again next turn, really. So you're just delaying, which is not what the demons need to be doing right now. You need to be killing me, because I'm the one delaying, because I'm the one scoring the hill right now. So the demons need to be aggressive, I feel, to try and break through this side and get into the ranges as fast as possible, because that's the only time they're going to start scoring, is when this unit gets whittled down or killed. So, I score the hill for 1 round, so there's 100 points in the bank. Enemy turn, they decide not to charge into the Doomseeker and just turn a little bit, so I can pretty much do what I was anticipating there, but I've also got the option of charging something into these Furies now as well. But they do have a horrible banner, actually. I don't remember what's this banner called? It's on one of the heralds, isn't it? Let's have a look. Is it the Banner of Change? Because one of them means that if I am in combat with them, I suffer impact hits, which is quite scary. So obviously a Doomseeker could potentially be killed by that, so maybe not the best place to throw one of them. The Skull Cannon. Well, you can see it's killed quite a few Iron Drakes because I turned them side on, not realising that it actually had a decent line of sight there. And because it's on a hill. So, or should it have done actually? Does being on a hill mean that you can land a cannonball over here, across another hill? Maybe it didn't need to, maybe it was just able to fire like down there and miss the hill. But I just missed the fact that it would be able to do that. So maybe it can actually trace a line, like miss the hill and still go down the side of the unit. So I just positioned them not very well, basically. So they lose quite a lot there. This one misfires and takes a wound. Turn 2. And onto my turn 2. So what am I going to do from this position? I'm going to unleash all my charges into the Beasts of Nurgle. I'm not going to throw the Dwarf Warriors in, because they will bring combat res with them. I feel like, though, they would be a good unit to attack for the Beasts of Nurgle, because they could avoid attacking the Doomseekers if they wanted to maybe leave them alive, if they want to do that. They probably don't. But they would kill a few of the Dwarf Warriors, I think. And I want to keep them as high a unit strength as possible. In case anything goes wrong with the Rangers, I've got them as backup to go and start scoring the hill later, so I don't really want them in a fight. Even though they would bring good combat res, I think 2 Doomseekers and the King should be able to get the job done, because if you attack the Doomseekers and kill them, that's good. You're just not scoring anything, and you're not going to do much to the King. It is risky sending the King away from the ward save, but you're only going to be wounding him on 6s with most things. So, here's my turn. You'll notice the Iron Drakes turn round now, so they're not going to get shot through the flank again. And with my various shooting from... Let's see. Where were they? Where were the cavalry? They were there. So I think it's the BSB and the Rangers shooting them that knock them down to 1, who is the Herald, I think. Well, this is kind of surprising. So Beasts of Nurgle have got 4 wounds each, I think. So I'm clearly not just killed them in one go. But I did win combat. I did enough damage to win. The other Doomseeker did get killed. This one took a wound. But I won by enough. Then they rolled on their demonic instability and got a double 6, so the unit just disappears regardless of how many wounds are left. So Beasts of Nurgle are dead. They would have been heavily damaged, because of... I did do some decent damage to them, but they shouldn't have been totally gone in one round. And you can see also... Where were we? That the Gyrocopter, instead of joining in, decided to charge into the Furies to try and lock them down for a turn. The other 2 Gyrocopters you can see are now fleeing, because they also joined in the charge on the Furies, but I lost. Those two fled, this one just fell back or gave ground, and the Furies decided to stay fighting this thing, because they didn't want to fly straight into the toughness 10 king and fight him next turn. So, I'm quite happy with how it's looking. The Beasts of Nurgle were obviously a big threat, and they're gone. The enemy, if they're going to get anything out of this game, need to do something about the Rangers, and I don't know if they have the tools to do it now. They do have spells for, like, reducing toughness, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. Turn 3 for the demons. We've got the Skull Cannon is just backing away and firing, because it doesn't want to get shot. Horrors moving forward a bit and shooting, but not much effect. They're trying to whittle down the Rangers so that there's more unit strength in the pink Horrors, so they can move up and touch the hill and score it instead of me. They're not doing enough with their shooting, unfortunately, for them. Skull Cannon takes out a single Dwarf Warrior. Other Skull Cannon hits the Organ Gun, but fails to wound, I think. Yeah, rolled a 1 to wound on the Organ Gun. The Furies managed to defeat the Gyrocopter and then overrun into the Doomseeker. So that's how it looks. I'm going to charge my King into these Furies next turn, because he'll do a good job locking them down. Because their banner won't be able to hurt him, I don't think, because it does, I think it's strength 2 impact hits, so with toughness 10 it just can't damage him. So you can see I'm going into my turn 3, I shoot down a load of the blue horrors, and next turn I'm going to start trying to whittle down this pink horror unit instead, because I become aware that if my unit loses a few models, then this unit suddenly becomes the dominant force when it comes to the hill, so I have to be careful. The King charges in, the Doomseeker gets killed, which is okay, because there's no points there, and the King ties the combat, I think. The Warriors are just hanging out here, waiting to move up if they're required for scoring purposes. It is a very stylish army. There were loads of very cool armies at this event. This one was definitely up there. So I've got 300 victory points for the hill already. Turn 4 for the enemy. It's time for the Lord of Change, who's just been hanging out hiding and casting spells, to throw himself in along with the Skull Cannon. The Skull Cannon failed an impetuosity test, which is why he charged in. And my understanding is that they're the same base width, so the Lord of Change can actually go in corner to corner and make a disordered charge, is that correct? And I feel a sneeze coming on. It was 2 sneezes, in fact. So, is that correct? That if you go in corner to corner, it's a disordered charge? It's not going to matter anyway, because there's probably going to be a challenge made between them, which I think would mean they would just fight normally then. I believe. Someone let me know if any of that stuff is wrong that I just said. The Horrors are continuing to shoot with not much effect. Rebecca says, no, it is a normal charge. Okay, I think in one of the previous games someone was talking about how corner to corner would be a disordered charge. But either way, it didn't make a difference here anyway. But that is good to know if that is the case. Okay, so I end up losing combat here a little bit by the looks of it. Because I do take some wounds, because this horrible Lord of Change does not allow armor saves. So every 6 he rolls just goes through. So I do take some wounds there and lose the combat. But obviously, it's a king, he's not scared, not going anywhere. Turn 4 for me. There's only 1 horror left in this unit now. And I do fire into the pink horrors now and kill some of those, because I'm worried that they will eventually out-unit strength me. The Dwarf Warriors try to charge into the Lord of Change to try and bring some combat res with them, but they didn't make it, as you can see. And I bounce off after losing combat again, and the enemy can now charge into my flank, which could be quite scary, because we're no longer engaged anymore. So the Lord of Change could potentially get into the flank of the Rangers. which I'm actually not too scared of, because I've got decent combat resolution. I'll be able to fight through the ranks with somebody, probably the runesmith, to then challenge him. So I'm 400 points up on the scenario. Turn 5 for the enemy. So, a spell is cast to reduce the toughness of these dwarf warriors by 1. The pink horrors charge into the rangers, and the blue horror charges into the iron drakes. I kill 5 of them with stand and shoot, which is going to help a lot with the combat resolution. So I think it was a bit of a gamble, the pink horrors also going in with the Lord of Change. A Lord of Change is not like super killy compared to some of the other things of that price in the game, because he is a wizard as well, so he is paying for that. But he does have Spectral Doppelganger, so he can potentially get more attacks that way. But if he's stuck in a challenge with like a runesmith, I'm not sure whether he would win the combat, because he's outnumbered. I've got a banner, a BSB, a Rune of Battle, and he may win the combat by a small amount, but I don't think it's what he really wants. So the horrors are going in hoping to bring some combat res with them. It's not looking that way at the moment because they've already taken 5 shooting casualties. John says, got to love dwarven armies. That is, in fact, true. Especially ones with official old dwarf models. This army is like very much all over the place year-wise, because these Bugman's Rangers are quite old. Plastic dwarves are mostly year 2000. There's some slightly newer ones mixed in with them. There's Iron Drakes, which were about 2013-ish, shortly before the world blew up. And then there's some of the new character models as well that they brought out very recently. So it's all over the place, this army. It's been collected for a long time. The first dwarf models I acquired would have been in like maybe 1996, possibly, when I got some of the old classic single pose dwarves and a cannon, an organ gun. I had a load of stuff. I got rid of a lot of that original stuff, actually. I had metal thunderers, and then in 2000 I started a new dwarf army, but kept some of the war machines that I had from the previous one, and it was mostly plastic, that army. That's when I got the metal gyrocopter as well. Loads of dwarf warriors, quarrelers, and then when I started back in on Warhammer Fantasy, which was shortly before they renewed the dwarves with Iron Drakes and those kind of things, then I've got some of the Skull Pass dwarves, and on eBay just got like random dwarves, so I've got like 4 of the new quarrelers to put in the front rank, aiming their crossbows forwards because they look cool. So all over the place. So they do make it in on the charge, and we've got the Lord of Change in the flank represented by this base, because we don't want to put that very heavy, very big fancy model perched on a hill. And this table didn't have one of the new fancy hills in the middle. I don't think enough of those have been made yet. You need a few more. And the Dwarf Warriors, they got charged by the Furies, but I ended up winning combat against them anyway. And then, well, I end up winning combat by 10 against the Lord of Change and the Horrors. The result of which is that the Horrors fail their instability test and all of them explode. And the Lord of Change does not explode, thankfully for the enemy. So that did not go well for them. I think I might have lost an Iron Drake to some shooting here, but nothing too significant going on there. So, the Lord of Change gives ground, I think, as far as he can, which is up to the Fury. Turn 5 for me. Organ gun spins round. All my other units spin round and shoot at the Lord of Change and do 2 wounds. So not very effective, sadly. I think he's got Glittering Robe on him at the moment, which is -1 to hit him, which is not very friendly. My gyrocopter goes around the back of this building and shoots the Herald that was hiding back there. And I pick up more hill points. And the only enemy core unit left is actually this one. And how many's left in there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I don't think they can actually hold anything now. So turn 6 for the enemy. The Lord of Change just lands behind me, isn't eager to charge in and take a stand and shoot. I can understand why. And my turn 6, everyone spins round to shoot. The warriors move up to take the special feature. And everyone blasts the Lord of Change to smithereens. So the organ gun, the rangers and the BSB, the Iron Drakes, all of them open fire, take out the Lord of Change. And I score another hill point and more points for the special feature at the end of the game as well. So, that is obviously a nice spicy win for the Dwarves. Killed loads of stuff, killed the general, scored all the way through the game, got massive scenario points, and that results in a 19-1 win for the Dwarves. I think that was a horrible matchup for the Demons, actually, because King of the Hill against a very strong unit like this is quite dangerous. When you've got that big unit strength touching the hill from the start of the game, you have to deal with them if you want to score, and I don't know if the Demons were really set up to do that. They needed probably to bring way more combined might into that unit at once, but if they'd set up to do that, I would have put my toughness 10 king in there as well, which makes it very scary. So let's see, we had the Rangers and the BSB and the King and Burlock and the Runesmith all in that unit, and they were facing off against, let's say, the Lord of Change, the Beasts of Nurgle, some horrors, and skull cannons maybe. If all of that stuff had one big fight, I feel fairly good about it still. It wouldn't be as one-sided as the King's fights ended up being if everything got in there at once. But I think it would have been slightly better for the Demons if they'd managed to consolidate all their forces just to get into a position to start scoring points. The stuff they ended up fighting, they didn't end up all in at once. And there was no real combat where I thought the Demons were the favourites to just completely flatten the Dwarves. Even when those pink horrors went in the front, I felt that was more to their detriment because of that big stand and shoot bonus. And then it was more enemies for me to attack as well. So I didn't feel like there was anything that was too in the favour of the Demons throughout the game. So it felt pretty good throughout. Photos of the armies. We've got elves. Lots of fancy elves. We have got, I'm going to guess that this is the new half Cathay, half Empire, with obviously these very stylishly tooled up steam tanks involved. I'm going to assume that's what we've got here. Then, so there's a nice story with this army. I assume Mr. Honest Wargamer, square-based Rob, is going to do something on this. And I did ask him if it was alright to show off this army on the video, and he said, yeah, it's fine, the secret's out now. So this is actually his army that a gang of misfits stole and painted in secret and then returned to him fully painted as a gift. So that is a very heartwarming tale. So I thought I'd take some nice pictures of them. Very stylish. I'm sure he'll do something on this on the old square-based channel. But now he's got a full painted Chaos Dwarf army. Very nice. I especially like the skin tone on these hobgoblins. Okay, enough of that. Skaven. Nice to see Skaven with extra points now. They get the full 2,600 because Skaven are considered to be very weak. We have got more Cathay, of course. You're going to see quite a lot of those around the place, including a Sentinel, not just balloons. We've got Wood Elves, lots of trees, out of focus trees, and in focus trees. You've definitely seen this army before in some of my games. We've got a Slayer host. So, let's play Spot the GW Slayers. Do we have any in there? Let's have a look. There may be some lurking in there. I can't see any immediately. And what... Oh, we've got some Fire Slayers at the back there. So they're GW. Pretty sure those are some Fire Slayers. And then I'm going to assume the rest are... Let's see, have we got some Highland miniatures, or are lots of them Fire Slayers? Could be converted, a lot of Fire Slayers in there. There could be some Highland miniatures as well. Not 100% sure. If anyone knows, let me know. Then we've got some Ogres. Don't see too many of them about. Maybe we'll see more representation of all the armies now that certain armies get more points, so they're not going to be as weak. Then the very stylish Bretonnians with the knightly helmet. Very cool indeed. One of the coolest armies, definitely. Another one of the coolest armies. We have got some trolls with some goblins. We've got spiders. We've got cool mushroom trolls. We've got, what's this one representing? Let's have a look. Can we actually see there? Is that representative of, is it a giant? But it's the big idol. I don't know if that's something that's represented in the rules or not. So I guess that will be a giant probably then. 2 big spiders. And look at that. Very cool army indeed. I didn't get to play against this one, unfortunately. And some very nice trolls. I think a troll matchup is quite tricky against my dwarves though, because I do have a lot of flaming attacks. And a lot of hatred against greenskins as well. So I think it would be tough for them. It's a bone crusher. Is it bone crusher or bone cruncher? Either way, the big giant. Super large giant. Then we've got some more Cathay with a couple of balloons. Plenty of Cathay, as you can imagine. And some dwarves that we've definitely seen before, but this looks like a slightly different twist on the usual dwarf list that we see. This is the Expeditionary Force, so we've only got 1 character on Shield Bearers. We've got another one on an Oathstone by the looks of it. We've got probably a Handgun of Doom in there, I would imagine. But we've got another one, another engineer, maybe some engineer sappers in there. And probably Burlock. Some gyrocopters. Very nice. As always. We have got some more ogres, some very snowy ogres, and these are the Lord of the Rings goblins, I think. Which are some miniatures that I always wanted to use in an army, but I never really found a way to use them. More Bretonnians. So, another one, just Bretonnians up to your eyeballs in wonderfully painted Bretonnians. Is this the best use for this guy, this Bretonnian lord on foot, on a baggage train? This is definitely among the most effort I've seen put into a baggage train so far, so you get bonus points there. Very cool, and this is the staggered Pegasus Knights I was talking about earlier, where they can actually rank up with wings. This is the kind of lengths you have to go to because of GW's fondness for not having models that are constrained within their own bases. Trebuchet, just another very cool army. Knights on foot, which you don't see very much of, but it's nice to see some of them. Pegasus characters, peasants, and I really like this actually. There's only one way I wouldn't like this, and that's if the player, the painter, spent a really long time highlighting the legs that you can now no longer see. So I would hope that it was minimal effort put into the legs, since it's going to be obscured by this very tall plant life. But it does look very cool, like they're walking through, stalking even, through a lush meadow, which I haven't really seen before as a concept. I don't know if maybe the rest of them are going to end up like that. You can see the foot knights are. Maybe some of the others. Some of the others have got like scenic rocky bases as well. So maybe they won't get quite so much of the grass. But just very cool concept. I'd be concerned about covering up the model's legs by doing that. But it does look very effective and it's unique. We have got... What is this? Is this Wolves of the Sea? We've got some wolves in there, so it probably is. Very colourful wolves for a change. Normally they're mostly like grey or brown, aren't they, wolves? And we had some more Cathay sitting on a tray. They can't escape my camera though. And then into the next round. So, into the final round. I'm now on 2 losses and 2 wins, so I've bounced back. And now we've got the interesting diagonal deployment setup of this one. So we've got a special feature and domination. And baggage trains, but they're not on the card. So, it's Bretonnians again, but this time it's Bretonnian exiles, or Bretonnian textiles, as I would refer to them. And I assume that they were exiled because they committed some kind of textile-based crime. So they were sent out of the kingdom, and then as soon as you're exiled from Bretonnia, the first thing you learn when you pass through the border is that cannons exist, and you're allowed to use them. So suddenly you've been exiled, and you have access to all this black powder weaponry. And you find these cannons, and you think, who left these cannons here? Why, this is better than a dwarf cannon. What's going on here? Who created this and just left it by the side of the road at the border of Bretonnia? Apparently, probably the dwarves made it, and it was a dwarf clan that was shamed, so their creation, even though it was way more powerful than their own cannons, they're no longer allowed to ever use it, so all of them were cast out into a pit. And then some adventurous humans one day stumbled across that pit and dragged them all the way to the borders of Bretonnia, and now the humans get to use them. Because the bombard is just better than a dwarf cannon. So a little narrative and a mini rant there for you. So let's go through the Bretonnian exile list, which is the very cool Knights on Foot. So even though you could say it's a bit boring facing 3 Bretonnians in one event, they are also very nicely painted, so I'm not going to complain. We've got, because it's exiles, you're going to see some differences. There is a Baron on a Royal Pegasus, though, with the Gromrel Greathelm, Virtue of Knightly Temper. There's a Paladin on a Royal Pegasus, who is the Battle Standard Bearer. Nothing fancy upgrading the BSB at all, though. It's just a BSB. There's a Damsel Level 1 Wizard on a Warhorse, who is in amongst this rabble here. The Green Knight as well is off the table at the start, so that's the first time facing the Green Knight at this event, so that's going to be interesting. I don't have that many magical attacks. I've got my Exploding Handgun of Doom and a couple of Doomseekers with magic tooled up rune weapons that could hurt him, other than combat resolution. We've got 29 Yeoman Guard, peasants if you will, exiled peasants. And 29 is a significant number because it's higher than the Rangers, so if it comes down to scoring a special feature, for instance, they're starting off with more models than the Rangers are, so it could be interesting. 7 Mounted Yeomen, some of the models I like. When did they stop calling them Mounted Squires and start calling them Mounted Yeomen? Because that threw me off when they released them. Steve says that's some of the best painted armies I've seen. Why I love Fantasy Warhammer. Yep, especially Bretonnians. All the Bretonnian armies ridiculously good. And it's sad that my Bretonnian army is probably never going to be painted, because I've got too much to paint, I play too many game systems, and I'm too attached to Dwarves and Chaos Warriors. So I don't think I'm ever going to be able to put the time in to paint my Bretonnians up to a high enough standard. So I've already sold my Green Knight before painting it. So we'll see if any of the others get sold. I think Mr. Rem actually wants to buy my Trebuchet off me, because that's not always in stock from GW. So I may get rid of that as well before that's painted. I'm not going to be too desperate to sell all of them. If I start running low on funds, then I definitely will. That'll be the first thing to go. But one day, maybe they'll get painted. It doesn't encourage me when you see people not running Grail Knights or Questing Knights, because I think they're some of the coolest models and you don't see them on the table. So that doesn't give me encouragement for actually painting my own. So, in this army we have got... what else have we got? We've got 10 Peasant Bowmen times 3, so 3 units of 10 peasants who do not have any command or anything. They are skirmishers. We've got 17 Knights of the Realm on foot, which we looked at earlier. We've got 3 Pegasus Knights in a unit here. They're going to be joined by the BSB. We've got a Trebuchet. We have 2 Border Princes Bombards as well. And for only 100 points each for those war machines, seems like a bargain. And they have their own misfire chart as well, which is really fun. Hoodoo says, Brett seemed like an incredibly challenging army to paint in any sort of timely manner. Yes, maybe that's why we're seeing all the really well-painted ones popping up now after the game's been out for nearly 2 years. People have been furiously painting individual heraldry, all the different colour schemes onto their knights this whole time. So, this one doesn't have any knights on traditional horses. They're all either on foot or Pegasus, which isn't the best news. Here's the Green Knight, very stylish, as I'm sure you'll agree. So, here is how it looks with the setup we have. We don't have buildings here, which would have created an odd blockade in the middle of the table. We have got the special feature, though, which is going to block a little bit. We've got Organ Gun, Iron Drakes on the hill. We've got the Rangers out of the deployment zone, which is obviously a risk, but I'm planning to put the Runesmith and Burlock in there. Now, because the enemy has not put the Pegasus Duke, who is the powerful one, no, it's a Baron in this list, because the Baron is not also in the Pegasus Knights, I'm not actually as scared of combat with the Rangers as I would be otherwise. So that's why I've deployed my 2 fighting or really powerful deterrent heroes into the Dwarf Warriors, which you might think is an odd move. But there's enemy infantry, so they're not going to run away from me. So I'm going to be able to walk forwards and maybe fight some infantry at some point. So that's what they're going to do. The Doomseekers are obviously just gunning straight for the enemy as well. But the fact there is infantry gives me hope that we're going to fight a bit with my own infantry. The Rangers are less concerned. There's less Pegasus Knights than usual, so they're going to just shoot with these 2 characters in there. And I've got Doomseekers for support. We've got the Gyrocopters going this way as well. Maybe Cabbage and War Machine hunting would be a good goal for them. The Organ Gun is eyeing up these Knights on foot as well, which is why it's on the hill, so it can immediately start shooting at them. Turn 1, and the enemy win the roll to go first, and the Green Knight successfully immediately pops up next to the Rangers, but because of the square-based change, the Green Knight cannot charge on the turn it arrives, but it can still pop up right next to you and it can still move. So, not a lot of aggression from the enemy in turn 1, as you can see. Plenty of screening. These mounted yeomen moving forward so the wizard can cast a spell and then they'll reserve move back again. Bombard takes aim, kills a Dwarf Warrior. I think the Trebuchet scatters, possibly this turn, scatters onto the King's head. So, because the King has a one-off, once per game 2+ ward save, it's very tempting, and because he's toughness 10, so it would need a 6 to wound him anyway, it's tempting to just not bother using Look Out, Sir. Because if he looks out, Sir, one of the Dwarf Warriors will probably be killed, whereas if it lands squarely on his head, then he probably does not take any damage at all. So I'm constantly tempted to just let him take cannonballs and trebuchet shots to the face when they scatter onto him. They're trying to kill the Organ Gun, by the way. But obviously things are scattering. So they do not manage to kill the Organ Gun in that turn, which is nice. And then they reserve move away. Into my turn, Organ Gun and the BSB handgun. Unload. My crossbows decide to ignore the Green Knight entirely, but I am sending Doomseekers this way so they can charge him if he does want to fight me. In hindsight, a better move here is not worrying about shooting this turn, and maybe reform a bit so that the Green Knight has to charge them in the front, because that's going to reduce his combat res, which is probably going to be better in the long run, rather than letting him hit in the flank and get that extra +1 from the combat resolution. It's also going to bring him closer to the Doomseeker as well, which would mean I'm more likely to make a charge into him, maybe with 2 of them, which would obviously be bad news for him, because 2 Doomseekers on the charge would probably mince the Green Knight to death. And if you kill him once under the square-based comp pack, you do score some points as well. So I shoot down some peasants, I shoot down some knights on foot with the Organ Gun, which is very nice. And you'll notice these cannons are looking very dwarven, and these are some of the nicest cannons I've ever seen, actually, paint-wise. Slightly more stylish than mine. And I am pretty proud of my Dwarf War Machines as well, though, because I gave them a bit of a touch-up for the new edition. But definitely not as nice as these. Turn 2 for the enemy. The Green Knight is going to charge the Rangers, but I'm not concerned. In he goes. The Pegasus Knights with the BSB are working their way around to the flank, so at this point I am actually slightly concerned. I'm thinking, you know what, maybe I should have rotated the Rangers and just presented a frontage to everybody instead of allowing the Green Knight to get into the flank. I just was too disrespectful to him, I think. That I didn't even turn away from him, because I just wasn't concerned about him, when maybe I should be. Gyrocopters getting in position to just shoot and bide their time. This one moving forward, getting ready to charge maybe a war machine if the enemy don't deal with it. And in the combat, the Green Knight doesn't do that much. I think it kills a ranger or 2 at best, does it? Yeah, I think it kills about 3. So we're not going anywhere because we're just giving ground, but we're in terrain so we don't move. Which is another thing I didn't consider, actually. The fact that you don't move when giving ground in terrain, because I was anticipating I would lose combat by like 1 and bounce this way a bit, bringing it closer to the Doomseeker. So it's another reason why I should have just turned sideways with the Rangers instead. Turn 2 for me. These warriors are only moving forward 3 inches a turn because they want to keep shooting with the BSB. And he kills, along with the organ gun, wipes out loads more of the knights on foot. The Doomseekers move closer. This one fails its charge this time. And the Gyrocopter attempts to charge into the enemy cannon, but the cannon flees. It only fled about 3 inches though, so I could have still caught it, but I didn't roll very high, so do not catch it, and I just stopped like an inch in front of the Pegasus Knights. And into turn 3 for the enemy. The cannon fails to rally and runs straight off the table, which is nice, even though it was near the BSB, among others. The Green Knight continuing to... I think he loses combat this time. Or he maybe he lost last time and won this time, but either way, he has taken some wounds. He keeps losing because he's not doing much damage. And because I'm standing on a static combat res, due to having a rank and a banner and outnumbering with infantry, Gyrocopter gets charged by the Pegasus Knights, doesn't die though, because they don't get to use their lances because they were so close to me. Turn 3 to me, moving forward again and shooting up more of the knights, but there's still 1 left, despite the clatter guns as well. 1 knight on foot remaining, a champion of the unit. Doomseeker fails its charge into the Green Knight, and the other one died as well last turn. I didn't mention that. I think he got a fireball or something to the face, or just got shot by archers, but he's dead. Turn 4 for the enemy. So this time, in my turn, the Gyrocopter was finished off, and they overran. So they now charge in to the Rangers, and the Baron, who is separate from them, charges into the Doomseeker, hoping to overrun and then join in the fight as well. So the Rangers not feeling too good about themselves at the moment. So I'm hopeful that with some challenging shenanigans, they can hold up this unit for a little bit until I can bring all my guns to face them. But no, the Rangers get massacred and die. So that is not ideal. They do get pursued because they had to flee and then they were cut down by the Green Knight and the Pegasus Knights. So Rangers dead, so that's not great. We've lost the Rangers, Burlock and a Runesmith. On the plus side, we've lost a load of Doomseekers as well, so no points for them. And I'm in prime position to contest this if I get my Dwarf Warrior unit over here. And I'm doing quite well up here, but it's not going too great. I'm going to turn around and do some good damage with my shooting this turn. Turn 4 for me. So the Warriors move forward again, and I shoot at the... I identify this unit as my biggest threat for the special feature at the end of the game, because they've got good unit strength, so I kill some of them with the BSB. The Gyrocopters are still fighting this single Bretonnian knight on foot who charged them last turn, so they're just having a stalemate at the moment. The Iron Drakes turn round, reform a bit, so they can do some good shooting into the Pegasus Knights and do some damage on them, along with the organ gun. So they're whittled down to just 2 models, I think, and one of them is the BSB. So the hits are being randomised there. Turn 5 for the enemy, because there's not much going on over here. So the Baron and the Green Knight attempt to charge into the Iron Drakes, and the Pegasus Knights charge into the Organ Gun. I feel like maybe they could have all gone for the same unit to guarantee that they beat me. You can see the the Baron took a little bit of damage on the stand and shoot, but not much. The Green Knight failed his charge by an inch, which is fortunate for me. The Trebuchet lands another rock on the head of the King, but doesn't wound, because it needs a 6. The Gyrocopters, so this is actually a critical moment in the game. The Gyrocopters kill the final Foot Knight in combat and overrun, so they are now in a position where on my turn 5 they can move and touch the enemy baggage train. So the enemy will have turn 6 to try and destroy one Gyrocopter to stop me dismantling the baggage train. So it is a big moment coming up. The Organ Gun gets killed, as you would expect. I actually win combat by having a musician here, so I push the Baron away with the Iron Drakes, which is good. And going into my turn 5. So the Iron Drakes just stand off and shoot and don't do too much. The BSB with the Handgun of Doom turns around. He's not really performed that well in this game. Shoots up the Pegasus Knights but doesn't do a lot. The Gyrocopters move on to the enemy baggage train, as mentioned. So the enemy have got to do 2 wounds to the Gyrocopters to knock me off the baggage train. Otherwise, I'm going to pillage it in turn 6. Turn 6 for the enemy. So from this position, what would you be doing? At this point, my opponent realised that actually he's left these guys too far away to go for the special feature now. My understanding was that they were hiding so that they couldn't be shot, and then in turn 5 and 6 maybe they were going to go forwards and try and get the special feature. I think he may have just forgot to move them forwards earlier. But that's obviously would have been a good roll for them. Or maybe they were too scared. So in turn 6, the Pegasus Knight and the BSB just move over here. They're thinking about the scenario domination as well now. The Green Knight and the Baron into the Iron Drakes. The spellcasting and the shooting ability of these units and a Trebuchet aim at the Gyrocopter unit. The Trebuchet blows itself up in turn 6, and everybody else fails to wound the Gyrocopters. So that means I'm going to be able to take the baggage train. So that is a massive swing there, actually. The Trebuchet blowing itself up, and the baggage train is going to be destroyed. So that's going to be a big point swing in my favour there, compared to if the Gyrocopters had been shot and taken 2 damage. So the Iron Drakes manage to hold up the combat here and don't take too much damage, which is good, so they stay in there. And turn 6 for me. So the BSB gets out the units, we can shoot, and I can divide my units up a little bit between table sections. And I don't do much though. The handgun didn't really perform very well against the Pegasus Knights. He did do a pretty good job on the Foot Knights though. So the baggage train is destroyed, the Gyrocopters move down here and try and do some shooting into the mounted yeomen, but don't do much. The Iron Drakes manage to hang on and don't die, which is important. And then they do give away some points though, because they've lost most of the units. There's only like 4 guys left out of 18. So I've lost more of my army than the enemy has. But the Doomseekers obviously don't count. In terms of special feature, I control that with my Dwarf Warriors. There's 200 points. 250 points for taking the baggage train, so that's a big swing for me. In table sections, I only own one of them. I think I own this one, because I've got the Dwarf Warriors in there. But it's not a total wipeout though, because the enemy do have a unit in here as well. Those guys up there are dead. These ones aren't. So the enemy has 3 table sections. One of them is complete domination, where I don't have anybody, which I think is one of these 2, whichever one the Gyrocopters aren't in, maybe. Or it could be this one. I can't remember now. But there was one that was totally dominated, at least one where it was like double what I've got as well. So when we total up the scores at the end, because obviously the domination is more in favour of the Bretonnians, but I've got the baggage train and the special feature, and then the Bretonnians have killed more stuff as well. The final result is that the Bretonnians do have a lead, but they need 200 points difference in order to get a win. And I think it's 200, or is it 300? I can't remember. I think it's 200. But either way, the Bretonnians needed 6 more points to get an 11-9 win. So as it stands, it was a 10-10 draw, which feels about right. In terms of killing stuff, obviously the Bretonnians have done better, but the Doomseekers were dead, and they obviously aren't worth anything. In terms of scenario scoring, the Dwarves have the edge though, because I've got the special feature and the baggage train. And then I've scored some for the domination, but not as much as the Bretonnians. So the draw doesn't feel too out of whack. It was obviously going to be slightly skewed to the Bretonnians, but I did just enough to cling on to a draw, and the Iron Drakes hanging on was obviously a big deal. That would have turned it into a win. Any kind of tiny difference in the game would have made it a win, the Bretonnians, including the Trebuchet not destroying itself on turn 6 as well. So it's a draw. So perfectly dwarven performance, 2 losses, 2 wins and a draw. Right down the middle, and then finish exactly halfway down the table as well. So, how did that feel? This game, actually, the last 3 games felt like more like proper battles for me, because obviously the first 2 games were against very evasive, controlling armies that I couldn't really get to grips with in the ways that I would have liked, because they were just faster than me and more manoeuvrable. And I didn't really have the super long-range threat to force the enemy towards my units while they're guarded and tooled up with characters. They only really need to engage if I leave something unguarded with the army list I've got here. So maybe I go slightly less heavy into the Doomseekers and maybe bring in more long-range war machines. Maybe some grudge throwers to give a bit of a long-range threat. If somebody's hiding, just try and drop rocks on them. Or maybe there's something else I could put in there. Maybe I could try the Expeditionary Force at some point. More gyrocopters, perhaps. I'm going to be painting 2 more of those very soon. I haven't done too much painting. The reason, actually, there's not been too many battle reports lately. The last tournament I attended, which was with Chaos Warriors a few weeks ago, I didn't go to day 2 because I was a bit ill that day. And I was a bit feverish, on and off, for a few weeks there. So I actually had to back out of a Dead Zone event as well. So I missed like 1.5 tournaments because of that. I haven't been doing too much painting either. But I've got the... I did get plenty of PC gaming in though, for what it's worth. I finished, let's see, I finished The Last of Us Part 2, which is very good. And I was doing some city building on Anno 1800 in the Industrial Revolution city building, so that was fun. But painting gyrocopters next, and then I've got some metal longbeards from the 90s as well that I'm going to paint. And I'm very much looking forward to getting those on the table, because that transforms the list, actually, because suddenly there's a significant fighting unit now that's in core that isn't rangers. So I can fill the entire core with strong fighting units. There's no dwarf warriors that need to have babysitters in order to actually do anything. And I think the longbeards give me some different options. I can maybe... probably won't look at the anvil to blast them across the table because it's so unreliable now, but it gives me the option to look at things like that. I think they can be drilled as well, so they can move across in marching column, maybe bringing the pony cart to make them faster so they can get closer to the enemy, and then get some fighting done with them, put the good characters in with them, and maybe chase down the enemy a bit with them. Could be something to look at. And yeah, that's the next project on the table, is going to be mostly dwarf stuff for a couple of, at least a month or 2, I imagine, because after that I want to do some Slayers as well. I don't know if I'll have enough to do a full Slayer host, because I'm only using GW Slayers, which means it would be very expensive to get a full army. But we'll see how many I get done. I've also got the possibility of a further character on Shield Bearers, because I've got the classic metal Thorgrim on the throne, who I believe fits just about onto a 50mm base. So he can actually be another character on shield bearers if I want to run 3 of them, which would be pretty wild. And you can fit 3 of them into a list. And I don't know how I would tool a 3rd one up. Maybe if I have one that's toughness 10, one that's the BSB, and one that is really killy. That would be quite effective. And then I could decide which one to use in a challenge situation. I think that would be very interesting. Also, the BSB, even though he is good defensively, he doesn't do much damage in combat. So having 2 that can actually fight up close as well would be good. And I don't know if I've seen anyone using 3 characters on shield bearers in a list. It'll be interesting anyway. Okay, time to wrap this one up. Let's see how many viewers have we got at the moment. Let's see if YouTube wants to tell me. We have, let's see, 38 right now. Not bad at all for this time of night. It's getting pretty late. It's been about 2 hours, I think, this stream, which is about right. 2 hours 6 minutes just ticked over. There we go. So, pretty pleased with how this tournament was going. After the first 2 games, I was thinking, ugh, am I going to go through a whole event without really participating that much? Because they're not the kind of games where I was able to get to grips with the enemy. Are we just going to have lots of games like this? But thankfully, all the 3 games after that were more interactive and more back and forth. We're able to get involved in more of a fight. Obviously, I feel kind of bad for the demons that they kind of just had to walk in and get massacred by the dwarves in game 4. But that's what happens sometimes. Matchups are just bad, occasionally. And who won? Let me just check which factions won and finished in the top 3 here for you, in case you're interested. So we had Warriors of Chaos in 3rd, despite getting 2 draws actually, and 3 very small wins, which is interesting. Wood Elves in 2nd, with some very large wins, and Cathay in 1st place as the only player to get 5 wins, so yeah, that's fair enough. Most of them weren't huge wins. There was 1 really big win, and the others were kind of medium to small wins. Where did the other Cathay finish? Let's have a look. We've got 1 Cathay in 9th place. And where's the other one? I'm sure there were more than 2. Oh, we've got the Jade Fleet in 18th place. And oh, that Cathay-looking Empire army that I thought might be the hybrid, that was just pure Empire. It wasn't Cathay, it was just Empire that looks like Cathay. So maybe it is going to be run as the hybrid army at some point. And there's another Cathay in 24th place. So it's not just the army. Obviously, if you're a really good player and you're using a strong army, it's a good combo. So I assume the player that finished first is a good player. Okay, let's wrap this one up. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description, including there's the various social media shenanigans down there, and if you want me to attend endless tournaments and buy more dwarves, why not pledge your entire life savings in the PayPal or the Patreon links down there as well. And that's pretty much where all my disposable income goes, on tournament tickets and buying more miniatures. Not a lot else. My other hobbies, like exercise, don't include spending too much money. So that's fortunate, because miniatures are expensive. Don't forget to subscribe for some reason if you haven't already, and leave comments and such and all that good stuff. And let's just get the thumbnail up for a second so you can look at some dwarven hand-sculpted green stuff butt cheeks there, specially enhanced for you. And thanks for tuning in, everybody, and extra thanks to, let's see, Steve, it was earlier, for that donation. Very much appreciated. I'm sure that'll go into the Dwarf Fund. And all that remains to be said is, until next time, good night out there, whatever you are.